So we're going to start a new series this week. What that means is we're just going to have three topics, or I guess three kind of broad questions about heaven. And we're going to ask a bunch more questions about that topic. And the first question that we want to talk about today, I guess, is what heaven's going to be like. But more specifically, what is it going to be like to inhabit heaven? What will we inhabit in heaven? So there's kind of two parts to that question. What were the bodies that we will inhabit? And then what will our dwelling place, physically be? And so that first part, I want to take that. What are our bodies going to be like? And I'll just say, I was one of those probably up until college. I was somebody who definitely thought we were going to have wings and a halo, and we were all going to be like angels. And if I didn't think that, we were just going to be some sort of spirit thing, I guess, like angels. So what will our bodies be like? And I'll rephrase the question to take some pressure off of you. Okay. What does the Bible say? What does the Bible give us about what our glorified bodies will be like?
Okay, well, that you kind of answered your first question with that second statement. So in heaven we will, so in the resurrection, first of all, you have to realize there's the Bible talks about two distinct stages to the afterlife. You have heaven, or paradise, or the place we go the moment we die, the bosom of Abraham after the parable of the rich man and Lazarus in the book of Luke. So you have heaven, and then you have the resurrection, which takes place after the final judgment. And it seems like we know a lot less about heaven than we do about the resurrection, because the New Testament just doesn't talk about it a lot. But it seems like in heaven, our bodies will still be on earth. That's 2 Corinthians 5. If our earthly tent is destroyed, we have a building from God, an eternal house in heaven, not made by human hands. Meanwhile, we groan, longing to be clothed with our eternal dwelling, our heavenly dwelling. So in heaven, spirit, soul, something like that. Read about the souls of the martyrs in Revelation 6 crying out, "How long, O Lord?" But then, that's about it. That's all I think we know. Resurrection, we know a lot more. Paul goes into great detail about that in 1 Corinthians 15, explaining that it's a glorified physical body, that the bodies we're in now are acorns compared to the oaks of the resurrection body. And Jesus is called the first fruits. So his resurrection body in Luke 24 and John 21 give us some idea of what our resurrection bodies will be like. And, a lot of this is speculative, but it seems like that Jesus can materialize can pass from heaven to earth and materialize in different places. There's implications in John 20 that he appears behind locked doors where the disciples are gathered. But he can still eat. Obviously, no more sickness or sorrow or dying. That's from Revelation 21. There's my answer.
So we can learn a lot from Jesus' body. What is it, the Bible talks a little bit about this, probably more about what our environment's going to be like in heaven. But why is it good to think about what our glorified bodies are going to be like? Other than the fact that, okay, maybe I'm not going to have like a little gut, or or be anxious about my weight as much as I am, or I'm not going to be as concerned about my looks, hopefully, sinfully at least. So why is it good to think about that?
Well, because that's our salvation, in the fullest sense of the word. Romans 13:11, Paul says, "The hour has come for you to wake from your slumber, because our salvation is nearer now than when we first believed." So typically, as Protestant Christians in the United States, when we hear the word salvation, we think entirely in terms of past tense. We got saved at some period in the past. And clearly here, and it's in several places in the New Testament, 1 Peter, in Hebrews, lots of places, clearly there's this future aspect to our salvation. And what Paul means by that is delivered from the dominion of sin completely and totally. No more sin. What makes us miserable is our sin. And that can manifest itself physically, but primarily it manifests itself right here. Mm-hmm. And we will be freed from sin, we'll be freed from the power of sin completely and totally. And that is what, along with the presence of God. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But really those two go hand in hand.
Right.
They're two sides of the same coin. That is what's going to make heaven heaven. Adam was perfectly happy in the Garden of Eden. He had no self-doubts. He had no anxieties. He had no fears. He had no guilt. He had no shame. That sounds great.
Yeah.
And that's what we're looking forward to with the glorified body.
So shifting gears a little bit to I guess the environment, the place that we're going to dwell in. Revelation 21 is probably the go-to on this. I mean, it's the passage about the pearly gates and the road that's gold but translucent somehow. What John gives us this image for a reason, and there's something about it that's good to think about. What that's going to look like, but we don't. I mean, a lot of times he says it's like this. It's a metaphor, right? So,
yeah.
What is it going to look? I'm also one of those people that thought not only am I going to be an angel, but I'm going to be living on clouds, right? So I know that now I'm not going to be living on a cloud. Okay, what will my dwelling place look like?
Well, I do think Revelation 21, like all of Revelation, employs highly symbolic language. Mm-hmm. So we should not be quick to derive literal explanations from a symbolic book. The big point of the New Jerusalem, the city of God, the holy city coming down out of heaven, that's Revelation 21:10, is that it's the shape of a cube. And there are only two cubes in all the Bible, the New Jerusalem and the Holy of Holies in the tabernacle in the Old Testament. And so what's the Holy of Holies in the tabernacle in the Old Testament? That is the dwelling place of God on earth. What's New Jerusalem going to be? Our dwelling place with God forever. And he spells it out later on in chapter 21, because he says in verse 22 of Revelation, I did not see a temple in the city, because the Lord God Almighty and the Lamb are its temple. The city does not need the sun or the moon to shine on it, for the glory of God gives it its light, and the Lamb is its lamp. The nations will walk by its light, and the kings of the earth will bring their splendor into it. So that's what's primary. Presence of God, perfection, holiness, not much any physical description that we can.
That is primary, but it does seem like John's given us this beautiful imagery for a reason, right? I mean, maybe it's, who knows what that road's going to look like, but we know it's going to be beautiful.
He's borrowing
are we just supposed to get from this and maybe other places in Scripture that we're going to be dwelling with God? That's all you need to care about. I
wouldn't say that. What I would say is John has caught a glimpse of something that is literally more beautiful than words can describe. Right. So he is reaching as far as he can in his vocabulary to try to get across some idea of how wonderful and beautiful it's going to be. But no human words can express it. I don't think language can capture what it's going to be like.
So as I transitioned from clouds, I quickly moved into thinking we were all going to have mansions. I guess I have a question here. Do we get that from John 14? Mm-hmm. Is that so? There's not a mention of a mansion in heaven other than this. In my house there will be many rooms, and people take that to mean mansions. Maybe it will.
Well, the reason the old King James says mansions,
okay.
But in the 17th century when that was written, mansion meant apartment.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know.
So that's where that comes from. So that's why room, more modern translations have many rooms. Mm-hmm. And again, I don't think the point there is that there's going to be like some big dormitory, like Stockard Martin, and which doesn't sound like
you're going to have a bigger house than me or something like that.
Or that either. Like in the Good Place, right. If you've seen that TV show. The point is that what's the overall context? You have the disciples are troubled. Mm-hmm. Because Jesus is going away, and Peter can't. Peter says, "I want to follow you. Why can't I follow you?" And he's saying, "You can't. Just trust me. In my Father's house are many rooms. I'm preparing a place for you. I'll come back and bring you." But I don't think we need to lay out any doctrine of the physical space of heaven based on those words, because that's not the point.
To the last question on this, it does say that it will be the New Jerusalem. Mm-hmm. Will all earth be inhabitable, or will there be one section we're going to be in Jerusalem and Israel today? Or what? I mean, like, can we get anything from that? Like, will glorified Mississippi be better than Mississippi today? And will we be?
Well, it's hard to imagine how that could be. Yeah, I think more than all of Earth, I think all the universe will be inhabited. And it's not this is not the point of Philippians 2:15, but we're told in Philippians 2:15, do everything without complaining or arguing, so that you may become blameless and pure children of God, in which you shine like stars in the universe as you hold out the word of life. And we're told in Luke 19 that there's an allusion to being given cities to rule over in the parable of the minas. Again, really having to speculate, just giving little glimpses here and there of the Bible, but it seems to me that we'll be able to inhabit everything. There will be nothing off limits in the physical universe. If I had to guess, and that's basically a guess, nothing off limits in the physical universe in the resurrection.
Great. Thanks for answering those questions. They're tough questions. Again, good to think about what heaven's going to be like. That's what we're doing this series. The next two questions are going to be about our relationships and then about work, what work is going to look like in heaven. So just join us in the next couple weeks as we talk more about heaven. Thanks.